Hello and welcome to my 10 questions with video series where I ask virtual assistants all about their business. So, question one, who are you? Tell me about your business.
Hi Joe, I'm Fiona Doonican. I live in Hazelmere in Buckinghamshire. I've got two kids who are, well, kids, they're adults now, 26 and 28. And I have two gorgeous black cats. That's my home life. I've been a VA since 2016, and I now work with people who are neurodiverse business owners. Um, because I just found that that was a really interesting set of people to work for. I love them. And I'm very passionate about the environment. And so I also work with small businesses to embed sustainability into their ethos.
Amazing, fantastic. Question two, so what did you do before, Fiona, before you became a VA?
Well, I've sort of dipped in and out of being a VA, although it wasn't called that back in the day. I just worked from home for people occasionally. But in 2016, unfortunately, I lost both my parents. And so I sort of sat for a while not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And then I came across your course and I thought, oh, VA, that sounds like something I could do. So I did the DIY course. And I had a massive amount of sort of imposter syndrome going, I can't do this, I'm never going to be any good. But once I'd done the course, I thought, actually, I do know most of this. This is not a surprise to me. It's stuff I've been doing naturally for years. And so I set up Your Business Needs Me and never looked back, really.
Marvelous. So, on to question three. You've kind of answered this, like you've touched upon it. Question three was what was your biggest fear when it came to setting up your business? You mentioned imposter syndrome there.
I did. I suppose it's one of those things that you think, oh, people are going to ask me to do things I don't know how to do. But you can always find out how to do something. Or what I didn't realize that being a VA is I could choose not to do those things. I could just say, look, I don't do social media marketing, or I don't do invoicing, or whatever it is. And so that was my biggest fear of there was so much around saying that you need to niche down. And I thought I just do everything. So in fact, I never found a niche unless that's being a general VA. So it was stuff like that. But as I've gone on, I've found that there really are no barriers to this.
And you kind of do have a niche now, really, because you mentioned the sustainability and the neurodiverse clients. So I guess that's a niche of sorts, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose that's only really happened in the last couple of years, because I've always worked with one client who is autistic, and then I had joined several networking groups, and one of them, one of the group leaders phoned me and said, "Look, we've got a lady who's ADHD, would really like somebody as a VA, and we think you'll really get on." And so as time's gone on, I've just had more people who are neurodivergent, and do you know what? I love working for them because they're so wonderful to work for. They appreciate everything you do, which is very unlike being in big business. You just feel like a little bod with nobody thanking you for anything. Whereas I've constantly got people saying, "Look, couldn't do without you. This is wonderful." And I know that sounds a bit, blowing your own trumpet, but it's what life's about. You want to people please, but also you want to be thanked for it.
I agree. I think when it comes to working in a company, I think maybe a lot of employers think that the best way to show appreciation maybe is just through pay. Whereas actually, I've found that workers just want to be appreciated. They want someone just to say, you've done a really good job. I had a
Yeah,
boss once
absolutely.
who we would always stay late for him. He was so good. We loved him, and we'd whatever he needed, we'd do it. We were really happy to,
Mm.
and because he treated us well, he was interested in us, and he was just a really nice person to work for. And then when he left, had a different boss. But I was getting paid exactly the same. But because he wasn't interested in us and he didn't appreciate us or tell us he appreciated us, nobody stayed late. Nobody went out their way to help this guy because we didn't really like him, and we just thought, well, what are you doing for us? And sometimes it isn't
Mm.
the money, is it? It's actually just being valued.
No, I was the same when I was working when my mum had Alzheimer's, and so I was taking care of her and working. And I was running a team of 10 in a business. And I can remember going and saying, that mum wasn't really well, and I thought she was going towards the end of her life. And I got hauled into the HR office and told by the HR manager that I couldn't talk about my mum's illness because it was upsetting other people. And I came out and just thought, all right, I don't need this. And within about a week, I was out of there. I just thought, I don't need to be treated like that. And now I'm earning way more than I was earning for managing 10 people. So,
And happier.
yeah, much happier.
And 100 times happier.
Yeah.
So on to question 4. How has your life changed since you became a virtual assistant?
Well, apart from being much happier, as I've just said, and earning way more money than I was before. I just find that you can pick and choose your clients, so you don't have to work for somebody who you don't like, or you don't get on with, or you have differing views, or who doesn't treat you very well. You can work with people that feel like they're your tribe. They get you and you get them, and you appreciate each other, and that if there's something that happens and you can't go into work one day, they'll just go, that's fine, get better, you'll be fine, and nobody's worried about that. So that's the first thing. But also it means that I can take holidays whenever I feel like it. Or I don't have 20 days. I can do 2 long holidays or several short ones if I want to. It's just I've just got to organize my work around it. And organizing work around even weekends. So for example, this morning I got up a bit late and then I'm going to work Sunday. So it works fine for me, and you can fit things in. You can have lunch with friends who happen to be off, or in their lunch hour. And I just think I'm working from home. I've got all my things around me, and what's not to love, really?
Exactly. I like that too. I sometimes work on a Sunday because it's just quieter. I've got this group with all of these people in, and every time I go somewhere to say there's something I need from the group, I want an image or I want to just check something, before I know it, I've gone down a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
So every weekend it's much quieter in the group.
yeah,
And it's definitely easier for me sometimes just to take a day off in the week and work the weekend. And I like
yeah,
that I can.
yeah.
So, question 5, and again, you've touched on some of this already. What would you say is the most rewarding part of running your own business? Is it that freedom to to work how you like and when you like?
Yes, I think so. I think that's probably the most rewarding part, and working with people that I love. I think that's the most important thing. There's nothing worse than getting up in the morning and thinking, oh, I've got to go to work today. Whereas I wake up every morning and I'm thinking, "Oh, yeah, what have I got on today? That's great," and I actually feel excited about working, which is something I hadn't felt beforehand.
Yes. I feel that a lot in the winter, like when it's a dark mornings, because I do remember when I lived in Brighton, I became a virtual assistant living in Brighton. And so I used to walk to work. Sometimes I'd get a bus, it depended where I lived at the time because I moved a lot. But I would walk. And I remember just when it's raining and dark, and I'd think, I don't want to go out. I literally didn't
Yeah.
want to leave the house. And I appreciate that definitely a lot more in the
Mm,
winter because I don't have to go anywhere.
absolutely.
Sometimes too, on Tuesdays, I take Monty to the doggy daycare and he goes there. But I have to be there for about 8:30. So I
Mm,
hit the rush hour. But it's not too bad because I know that I'm not one of them. You know what I mean? Like I'm taking my dog to the sitters. On the way back, it's clear because everyone's going into the centre, so everyone's sitting in their car waiting to go to work, and I just think this is every morning for them, every
yeah.
morning. Question 6, Fiona. What do you feel is the most challenging part of running a business?
For me personally, it's not taking on too much, because I'm definitely a people pleaser. And so when someone says, "Oh, can you help me with," I'll always say yes. And I think, why did I do that? So sort of managing my boundaries, I think, is one of the things. But also because I have so many clients, trying to not get distracted when I'm on a particular client's work, because I think I've got something like 24 different email addresses that come in. And so I'm if I see something ping into another box, it's really hard to not just go and check what that is. But I'm pretty good at it now over the years. You know, I try to just I have set days for certain clients. I have two clients who have a large amount of hours with me, and so I say to them, well, I'm going to do Tuesdays and Thursdays with one of them, and I try not to look at anything else on those days. And if anyone else phones me, I'll say, I'm sorry, this is a day for this client. I'll ring you tomorrow. I think that it is really hard to do, but it's well worth it if you can do it.
So would you say that was boundaries? When these other interviews that I've done, a lot of people have mentioned boundaries, and it sounds quite similar, like being
Yeah.
quite decided about what you'll do and when.
Yeah, I think you have to be, and particularly because I work with neurodivergent people, they'll ring and they want something done now, and they do, you know, actually my clients are very good, but I'll just have to say to them, you know, thank you, I've written down what it is that you've asked me to do. I will do it when I'm next on your work. I mean, occasionally, obviously, that goes out the window if someone says, "Oh, I can't find a Zoom link for something." You'll just quickly pop and do that. But mostly, I try to just keep certain clients on certain days.
Yeah. It is difficult, isn't it, though, because you do want to. I think virtual assistants are just the nicest people.
Absolutely.
It's something that I've mentioned in a blog post recently, where I'm like, they're just the nicest people on the planet, which means that they really can over service.
Yeah.
Virtual assistants are very helpful.
Mm. Too helpful. Yeah.
um, Too helpful. So with question 7, how do you get your clients?
Do you know what? I have been incredibly lucky. I have never advertised my business. I sort of, it's just been word of mouth. People have come to me and said, "Oh, so and so say that they work with you, and wondering if you can help me." And it's gone like that ever since I started. So I don't think I've ever had a day when I haven't been completely full. It's just been amazing.
That is amazing. Did you have to market at the beginning though? Like, so I guess referrals normally come from obviously word of mouth, which is, I guess, a form of networking because people networking is just talking to people.
Yeah.
So did you is how you get clients now different? You know, you like you said, it's referrals now, but at the beginning, was it different? Did you have
No,
to
no,
build that
it's
up?
always been the same. I think my first two clients, as I say, when I was not really sure what I wanted to do, I went away for a few days with a couple of friends, and they were saying, "Oh, you know, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, there's this VA thing that I'm thinking of doing." And they're both business owners, and they said to me, "Oh, do you do this? Do you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I've still got them as clients, and that's from 2016. And so I came home after a weekend away with two clients. And then I had the care agency that looked after my mum and dad. They rang me and said they knew that I was a VA, and would I be able to help them with something? And it just sort of rolled from there. So I've always had referrals. I've never ever had to do any sort of marketing at all. I've been very, very fortunate.
That's incredible. I think too, I mean, something I've said a lot in the DIY course, you'll have heard me say this, that
Yeah,
people have been doing business with one another for thousands of years, and it is through talking
yeah,
and networking. I think there's very specific ways you can get someone. So, you know, we could go to like a regular networking event, but then, you know, and your ideal client often is very busy, so they're not at a networking event. And also,
yeah,
if you work with quite specific people, then they might not be at the event too, and that you can go to more industry specific events. But the care agency, I guess, you know, they knew that you were a virtual assistant because you must have mentioned it at some
yeah,
point. So
yeah.
again, talking to people.
I think the word networking can be very scary because a lot of people think that you have to get up at silly o'clock in the morning and go and stand up in front of people and do your elevator pitch and be confident and all the rest of it. And when you're starting out, you're not any of those things. You just think, I can't do this, I don't want to do it. And also they cost a lot of money. So, but it isn't. Networking is about talking to people. What do you do? Oh, well, I do this. Or, and it's just a case of being friendly, being yourself, and chatting to people. And that's the best way of doing it, because as soon as people buy from people and they work with people, and so they want to see you and they want to see what sort of person you are. And once you're chatting to them and saying what sort of things that you can do for them, they'll remember that and they'll come back to you.
Yeah, I found when I first started out, because I hadn't really worked with people at that point, I'd done a bit of work, but so instead of saying what I could, what I was doing, it was more talking about kind of what I could do. So I
Mm,
remember actually blagging it once. I remember sort of saying, oh well, for one client I do this and one client I do that. And it was a fib really. It was more like these were things that I could theoretically do, but
yeah.
it was easier to put it that way to them rather than saying theoretically I could help you with this. And then, I literally only needed to say that maybe in 2 networking meetings before I was actually doing it. And I then could honestly say, I do this for one client, this for another, because people need to hear specific examples. I found
Yes.
if you say I can help you with some admin, then they don't really understand what that might mean for them. But once you talk to them about their business and find out what they do, then you can suggest quite particular
Mm,
tasks.
yeah.
I've also got a friend who is a professional dog sitter. She like goes she does dog walking, but she also goes and stays in people's houses, and she left her job and is doing this. And we were walking once with Monty and a friend's dog that she had, and I was talking about networking and she was saying that it sounded really quite scary. And I, at the time, was running a little dog meetup in the area. And we came across some people walking their dog and we got, hello, got us talking, etc. And I mentioned the little dog meetup, and because they had a small dog, and they were like, brilliant, and told them when it was, etc. And off we went. And I said, that was networking
Mm.
to her. I
It
said,
is. It's
there's a
just
thing
about being
I'm,
friendly.
yeah, yeah, there's a thing I do, which is run this little dog meetup. They were the right people to, they didn't have a big dog. If they had a big dog, I wouldn't have mentioned it. They had a small dog. I literally just dropped it in and mentioned it and said that they should come along. And that was it. We literally just had a little chat. And she went, oh, I can do that. She hadn't
Exactly.
realized that was networking, because networking almost sort of sounds like a verb, doesn't it? Like it's a thing.
And it sounds
Let's network
terrifying.
today. It
It
sounds
sounds
terrifying.
terrifying. And I think that's what stops a lot of people at the beginning, because they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. So you do it every day when you talk to someone in the supermarket or whatever. It is actually
Yes.
easier than you think.
Yes, I got a client once just by walking a neighbour's dog in the park. Actually, this was before I had a dog, and I used to take their dog out. And lady in the park had a dog, and she was in the park in the middle of the day because she ran her own business.
Yeah, exactly.
Got talking. Yeah, even then, sometimes it might have been perhaps that she didn't have a business, but her sister might have, her friend may
Mm,
have, her brother, her dad. It's just talking. It's just
yeah,
talking to people, isn't
it
it?
is. It is.
Question 8. What do you wish that you had known when you first started out?
I think probably what we've just been speaking about is that networking isn't scary. That's one of the things. And, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to be completely set up with a home office and 2 screens and all of this. Like, you can start sitting on your couch with a laptop or a tablet. It's all possible. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can get secondhand items. You can go to programs that are online that are free to use. Or give you a free trial, or they're free until you get a certain amount of people in the business. So all of those sorts of things, use those. That's the thing to do. Start off. Don't worry about you. Oh, I have to have a niche before I start. Don't worry about, oh, I need to have all the equipment. Don't worry about, I don't know everything. I don't have a name for my business. All of those sorts of things you can manage without. The only caveat on that, I would say, is if you're using a name for a business, um, try not to have your email address at sort of Hotmail or Google or Outlook or one of those, because it doesn't look as professional, and it doesn't cost a lot to get your name as a domain name. So you can do that even if it's just, janedoe.com. It doesn't matter. You can always change it and you can forward it. So those sorts of things I worried about a lot when I started. And I was like, oh, I know I can't start until I've got a website, or I can't start until I've got, social media presence or whatever. And it's not the case at all. Just talk to people, get started, start small, start alongside what you're doing, and then just move forward.
I agree. I started without even really knowing what it was. I
Yeah.
just started doing some work for someone when I was working in a company. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, I'm kind of doing some self-employed work here. And there was more to it. I've got a free guide on the tools you need and don't need, but a lot of those things you have anyway. So you have a laptop, usually you have internet, you have a phone. There are things I think, that you need when you're getting clients, like a contract and ICO registration and insurance. But, as I say to the trainees, don't worry about getting those in place now. But literally, as soon as you get the client, it's just, they're all a click away or a phone call away. You can have
Absolutely.
all three of those things sorted in half an hour and then you're done.
Mm.
So there is that outlay. But then, the contract, you buy it and you've got it forever. The insurance, yes, you have to pay each month, but it's not that much money.
No, it's not.
Yeah. I started on the sofa as well. I'd sit on my sofa with my laptop. I didn't have an office for ages, actually, for years. It was just the dining room table
Yeah.
or the sofa. People just want you to get the work done.
Mm. I think the only thing you've got to be careful with that is posture, because I found that sitting on the sofa a lot does give you backache if you're not careful. So when you do then go towards actually properly sitting at a desk, you think, oh, this is better. I'm sitting in a good position.
It's true. It's true. I have a yo-yo desk. So this is, I don't have two monitors. I have probably the most professional setup I've ever had since I ever started. But I have my laptop here. It's connected to a monitor with with a HDMI cable. Then I have this yo-yo desk, so I click and it can go up and down because my chiropractor said, don't sit down all day and don't stand up all day. To be honest, I forget to stand up quite a lot. But when I hurt my ankle, because I was constantly standing, I got a bit of plantar fasciitis. It's like you're damned if you do. And then this was actually a couple of £100 and it's heavy as anything, but you don't need it. I
Yeah.
don't, I didn't need that. I could have just done with the laptop. It does make sense to get a bigger screen, really, because otherwise especially the older you get, you're like squinting. I do remember a boyfriend at the time, we were working in a cafe. Actually, we were working um, at a cafe at the yacht club, don't you know, at Brighton Marina. Sounds more fancy than it was. But he said from the side, he said, your neck sticking out
Yeah.
slightly like that. Yeah, because you're peering at the screen. And I didn't know I was doing it, but once he mentioned it, your head's quite heavy
Yeah.
and it can cause all sorts of problems later. This is something that I kind of wish I guess I knew when I first started out. that I've had RSI problems, which I thought was RSI, but turned out to be neck and shoulder problems. I've spent quite a lot of money actually in the past on physio chiropractors, and actually a lot of it was fit, preventable from posture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
I think
good
as you
call
get
on that
older as
one.
well, the temptation is to sort of slump down. And I try really hard to sit up, and every now and then I catch myself and I think, oh, shoulders back. But
Yeah.
I get up all the time. But again, working at home, the temptation is that I get up to go and make myself a cup of tea about every 10 minutes.
Oh,
but
good.
it's fine because at least that way, I have a watch that tells me I need to stand up. So I'm like, oh, is it tea time? Right, I'll go and get something.
I don't think I used to have one of those. I didn't like it. I was like, "Oh, go away! You're not my mum." I've got an analog one. But actually, I mean, even this chair, I didn't actually get a proper office chair until the last couple of months. And I've been doing this. I just sat at a regular chair, and I've been doing this since, for 15 years. That's disgraceful. I shouldn't have said that. Um, so, question 9, work-life balance. How do you handle that? Do you have a work-life balance?
I actually do. I keep my weekends free as much as possible, unless I take a day in the week. I do work pretty much the entire week. I work full time during the week. Um, Although, that's movable, but I try to keep all of my work within sort of between 9 and 5. I make sure that I get up in the morning, because the temptation is it's very easy just to lie in bed and get on your laptop. But if I find that if I get up, I get dressed, get myself ready, come down to my office, and then I'm ready for the day. Um, but I absolutely love theatre. And anyone who's on my social media will see that. But so what I do is my Saturdays are usually trips to London to go and see shows with a friend. So we do that every week. And that's what I earn my money for. And then Sundays, again, I'll either go and see a show, or I meet up with friends, or I go out and do something. I try and keep my weekends completely free. Even if that's just sitting watching a movie with a duvet, it doesn't matter, but I don't work at the weekends. And then during the week, I find sometimes I have a friend who has Tuesdays off, so she'll ring me on a Tuesday morning sometimes to say, fancy lunch? So, okay, yeah. Then I might work half an hour later in the evening. It depends on how much work I've got on, but yes, I do. And I love my holidays, so I try to keep those in as much as possible. Yeah, I find it really good, really good.
It sounds like you've got a really nice balance
Yeah.
there. Do you, when you first set up, were your kids at home, or have they always, I'm trying to remember how old you
They
said they were
were
any of them at home?
When I first set up, they were sort of teenage, so they were at school during the day, and then at home in the evenings. But they were old enough to just do their own thing, really. But I would
Yeah,
finish earlier on those days, so I would work a lot less. So I would take them both to school, come back, do some work till maybe 3, and then back onto the school run. And I wouldn't then work in the evening. So it's just elongated as they got older and got driving licenses and stuff. They go off and do their thing, moved away from home, all of that. So I don't worry about that now. But yeah, I think it's probably more challenging if you've got very small children. But again, you can take on as much work as you think you can handle.
it's been interesting doing these interviews and seeing how different people work
Mm.
as well. We had Holly, who her offices were in the stables yard so that she could go riding in the day. I mean, I couldn't, I was like, well, that's just, I don't know what to say about that. That's like goals, wow. And then there was, I can't remember who else it was, but they worked quite a lot in the evening because that's when they felt that they did their best work. And somebody else was like, oh, and definitely couldn't work in the evening because I'm fresher in the morning. And it was interesting to see how everyone had set up a life or working life that had just suited them, their situation, their personality.
I think the important thing with it is that it's your business. You set it up the way that works for you. You don't have to worry. Obviously, if you're working with someone in another country, in a different time zone, then that's slightly more difficult. But I work with people that all of my clients are in the UK, so they know when I'm around, and I'll tend to say to the client, I'm available from 10 till 4, and then I've got an hour either side at the end of the day to either get in before I start work, check my emails, just make sure everything's okay there, and then so I've got both sides of the day, both ends of the day rather, just to do a little bit of catch up.
Yeah, it's important. Well, the final question, question 10. What advice would you give to anyone who is considering virtual assistants as a career?
Do it. Do it straight away. Now, I think we've spoken a little bit earlier on about using, don't wait to do this. You don't have to wait until you're completely set up. You can do it alongside your job. If it's something, as long as you have the skills. I get quite cross when I hear people saying, oh, be a VA as a side hustle. You just think, no, actually it's a proper job. I can't ever imagine retiring, even though I'm sort of edging towards that age. But I think you've got to do what you love. Choose the parts of the sort of admin world, I suppose, whether that's social media or whatever. Choose what you love doing, and don't do the things you don't. At first, when you first set up, you think you have to do everything, because you just think everyone's going to expect you to be able to do absolutely everything in that spectrum. But it's not true. And actually, if you don't know something, it can be Googled or Chat GPT'd. There are ways of finding out how to do things very simply if you need to do them at any point. Don't oversell yourself, but just be yourself. Talk to people. Go for the sort of the less outlay when you're setting up, because you may find you actually don't like it and you want to go back to work. It's entirely up to you. But get out there, talk to as many people as possible, and pretty much guarantee you're going to love it.
Lovely. I've seen that happen before, actually, where people have decided to go back to work. And I've
Mm,
seen the opposite, where they've decided to go back to work, and then a few years later, they've decided to go back to being a VA again.
mm,
And again, it's one of the things I really like about working for yourself is that it's up to you to decide.
mm,
It doesn't mean that once you make a decision to work for yourself, that that's it. You have to do that then forever. You
yeah.
know, you can try it out and see if you like it. Obviously, you don't just leave your job. You set it up
Mm,
alongside your job, to see if you like it and if you're any good at it. But it doesn't mean to say that you have to do it forever. I've seen trainees, well, I guess ex-trainees. There's been a couple that have just said, I got offered an amazing, a client offered me a proper, a full-time role, and I loved working with them. I decided to take the opportunity. And I'm like,
yeah.
good for you. I think that's great because it was something that was carefully thought out. It was a perfect dream job for them. They weren't, having to apply for, send out 300 CVs or something,
Yeah.
and
And
it
so
suited
they
them.
go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, it was just absolutely perfect for them. And I've seen the opposite, where I've seen VAs go, oh, I went and got a job. I decided to go back to employment. And it was not normally ever because they didn't like it. It was always because of an opportunity, actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was because they wanted a steady income, a pension, they were buying a house, might have been something in particular. And then
Mm.
sometimes they've just said, and actually, I remembered why I left employment and I'm going back again. So I've seen it go both ways, and there isn't really one set path, is there?
No, I think the one of the things I would say to people is join, I was going to say networking groups, but for example, your networking groups, your Facebook groups, if you join the VA handbookers, you get to know a lot of other VAs, and it's an amazing community. That's what I'd say. Try and get out there into those communities. One of my clients came actually through the VA handbook, talking to another VA, and she said, "Oh, I need somebody else to work alongside me." And I took that on with her and then had that client for years. And so actually, it's really good. You find that all those imposter things that you think about, someone else has already thought about them. You can discuss it. It's such a lovely, open community that everybody helps everybody. And you won't find that pretty much anywhere else, I think. You get people, if they're in some sort of group, they're trying to get that job that you've already got, or there's a big competition going on. Whereas it's just so lovely. Everyone wants to help everybody else. And I've got some amazing friends out of it as well, which is always a plus.
This came up in the a co-working session actually in the VA Growth Hub the other week. One of them, I think there was maybe 5 or 6 people, and one of them mentioned that they had worked with every single person apart from one, and they were like, "When are you going to give me some work?" But they'd all passed on clients or outsourced work to one another, which I was really surprised about. I was like, "Oh, wait, they did say this in the group." They'd just mentioned it in the co-working session, which I
Yeah, no,
thought
I
was
love
really
that.
lovely.
It is
Yeah.
brilliant, and it's what kept me sane at the beginning, I must say, because whenever you come up with something, you think, oh, I can't do that. Someone's asked me this. Where do I find this? There's like 20 people who come back to you and go, tell you what, do this. This is really good. Or, if I'm looking for a client, if I'm looking to book something, a hotel in London or something like that, or a restaurant, you go into the group and someone will go, I'll tell you what's really good, or don't go near that one, or, and it really helps, just saves a lot of time and bother.
Yeah, no, so really, I'm very lucky actually with my groups, especially the handbookers. I mean, they're all amazing, but the handbookers, I say that about that group because it's so big.
Mm,
At the moment, we've got 24,500 people in it, and they're so well behaved. Sometimes I say to Anna, and I'm like, they're amazing, aren't they? There's no drama. There really isn't just this blowing up or drama and stress and hassle and arsiness or anything like that going on
exactly.
at any point. It really is noticeable with somebody. We think, oh, someone's got their back up about something. It's so rare.
Yeah,
We just don't have that. So yeah, they are an amazing community. It's true.
it's great. Yeah, I love it. So very, very fortunate to have fallen into the VA handbook groups.
Well, that's it. That's the end of the interview. Thank you so much for agreeing to do the interview with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.